Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. This is the In Deep on the Delta weekly report for July 6th, and we're going to really focus on largemouth bass. Not a lot of interest on the stripers recently. They're still in the system. I've been catching an occasional striper while fishing for largemouth out here, but most of the fish I'm catching are between about 12 and 16 inches. I think I got one about 22 inches a week ago on I think a horny toad of all things, but not a lot of interest in the striper. So we're going to focus on the largemouth bass. I'll talk a little bit about river conditions. We'll talk about the some of the recent tournaments and why you can't really judge how well or how poor the fishing on the Delta has been just looking at tournament results. And then I'm going to talk specifically about what I have been doing. And I have had pretty darn consistent luck on good quality fish for the last month. And I don't want to brag about that because I'll tell you in the very next sentence, between the times that I'm catching fish, I am going through long periods of not getting a bite and very inconsistent fishing. And it is a day-to-day thing. But I think I've finally keyed in on a few minor little things that I'll talk about today and share with you that are helping me to find success out here when a lot of other people may not be finding success. River news. Hey, the first thing I want to do is say I loaded up my video soft body frogs masterclass, and that's talking about fishing horny toads, which we're going to get into that later in the report. I loaded that up on 4th of July. So if you guys were out during the 4th of July, make sure you check out my masterclass on fishing soft body frogs. With that, we will talk about river conditions and then we'll get right into the report. Last week, 72-degree water temps that's where the water was fluctuating around at. This week, with 100-degree plus weather temps, I am looking at 66, 67-degree water temperatures. It's Wednesday morning. I was out early. I think I turned my electronics on about 8 o'clock, and I was already getting 76-degree water temps. Water clarity is 3 to 5 feet, and everything in the central delta is just prime. Lots of fry in here. I get more and more reports on people that are out here saying, you know what, man, I'm seeing a lot of bluegill out here. A lot of people are talking about, as they're looking into the mats, they're seeing more and more crawdads. I'm seeing more and more birds of prey that are sitting on these vegetation mats, and they're sitting there, and I'm seeing more and more of them diving and grabbing food. This is the time where things are starting to eat, and that does include the largemouth bass, but things are looking really good on the central delta. South delta, stay away. I'm still getting reports from 1 to 2 feet of water clarity down there, and let's just face it, winter was a disaster. Early spring, early to midsummer has been a disaster, and the only thing we could hope for is we get this flush of snow melt that comes through, and then it'll clear up down there for late summer and early fall, and you guys that fish down south will get into some good fishing. But for right now, I would stay out of the South Delta. I did not talk with Alan Fong this week. I know he's been out doing a lot of saltwater fishing. I don't know if he's been up around the Sacramento River largemouth fishing lately, but I'm pretty darn sure that everything up there is looking good. Why haven't the weekly Tuesday and Wednesday night tournaments, and this week we had a Saturday tournament for the BBT, why are their weights so low? They've been winning with 16, 17 pounds, 11 pounds is cashing checks. One of the problems is the Tuesday and Wednesday night tournaments are short tournaments, 6-hour tournaments, and they have just coincided with crappy tides, low tides, not a lot of tide movement, and they're on the delta at the wrong time. Nothing that they can do about it. That's tournament time. But like on the Wednesday night tournaments, they start at 3 to 8 o'clock or 8:30, and they fish a really crappy tide, and maybe they get 16, 17 pounds. Those same guys, if they were allowed to fish early morning until about noon, they may have 20, 22 pound bags. Just hasn't coincided with the time they're on the water when the good fishing takes place. BBT that fished Saturday, let's go over that. Same thing, 60 guys out here, had a pretty much of a disaster as far as numbers and sizes of fish. 60 guys, 20 guys didn't even weigh in. I think 16 or 17 pounds won, but right around the middle of the field, they're getting 6, 7, 8 pounds. Really tough fishing, but let's face it, 4th of July Saturday, lots of boat traffic out here, skiers, cruisers, lots of other fishermen, tough fishing conditions, and they just had a nasty tide. Low tide pretty much throughout the day that they got to fish, and it was just not a good day to be out there fishing. You wouldn't expect that the fishing was good, and it wasn't. So I just want to, let everybody know that just because the tournament weights are not good doesn't mean that the fishing during certain parts of the day out here can't be really good. So with that, I'll talk about what I've been doing and what I think my keys to success are. I'm sticking to the last week, about 3 baits, and I'm fishing around the morning hours or the evening hours, or when we have a high outgoing tide. Those are the 3 times that I've really been, focusing on. Now, the 3 baits that I have been keying in on are the horny toad with a owner flashy swimmer hook. This is a 3/8 ounce weight, and it's got the little spinner on it. And I'm sticking with kind of green pumpkin, red, bluegill colors. White horny toad has been good. That's been my prime bait. I've been throwing a lot of this Damiki air frog. That is a bait that I talk about on my master class, and this one has been doing a lot of damage for me. And that big fish that blew up and I lost, that was a Damiki air frog at the beginning of the report today. That big blow up that was on screen. And then last but not least, I am throwing a bubble walker. Now, here's how I am fishing this. Don't stay in one place very long if you're not catching fish. Look for 3 to 5 feet of water depth. Obviously, if you're in the central delta, you're going to have, have that at high tide on a lot of banks. And I'm looking for especially offshore tules. When I'm fishing the areas of offshore tules, I want to make sure I'm fishing very tight to those tules. That's where the horny toad comes in, because I can throw that horny toad almost like it was a hollow body frog, not quite in as much slop as that, but I'll throw that horny toad out and I'll pull it right through the tule clumps. And I have to back up and tell you, I'm fishing south of the main channel out of Paradise Point, Old River, Middle River, flooded islands. It doesn't matter where you are out here. If you're fishing rock, if you're fishing tule, if you're fishing tule islands, if you're fishing point, I'm catching fish all over, but it's not consistent in any one place. So I'm having to move around to all those places. So when you're moving, don't stay in one place too long, 15, 20 minutes. If you're not getting bit, move. But don't go from one tule point to another tule point to another tule point. Go from a rock bank to a tule point to a rock and tule bank that has sporadic, patches of tule. And then from there, go to a tule island, but mix it up where you're going. This Damiki air frog has been doing really well, and I'm fishing it like a buzz bait, moving it really fast. If you watch the video, you'll see this thing, how it comes through the water. It's like a small buzz bait. So I can throw this, it's taking the place of a buzz bait and a hollow body frog, and I'm moving quickly with this. When I find open water that I can throw a top water, this bubble walker has been very consistent. When they're not hitting the top water, the only bait that I have been using, and I'm not saying that I can't catch fish if I threw worm or drop shot, because those will work, but I've been throwing this horny toad, and I'm throwing it very close to cover. One of the keys is, as the sun comes up, you want to fish shade. And when I'm talking about shade, it doesn't have to be 4 feet of shade on the bank. It has to be 6 inches. You got to drop your bait, whether it's a horny toad or a topwater, in that 6-inch area of shade in order for them to hit it. They may not hit it in that first 6 inches, but it has to drop there in order for them to hit it 3 or 4 feet out of the bank, whether it's a topwater or a a horny toad. So fish very close to the shade, and as you pull up to rocks or anything, real tight. A lot of the fish are holding tight, and it's just a super reaction, aggressive bite. Now when you're fishing the topwaters, you have to stay on them. You're going to go through periods of slow action, but when they come up and they start hitting the topwaters, they hit them really well. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of idea of what I've been doing. Don't put down your punch rods. Throw your hollow body frogs. That stuff is going to come on as it gets warmer and warmer. Chatterbaits have been doing really well, and I'll tell you, when they're hitting that horny toad, they hit it just like a chatterbait. They're coming up and hitting that thing so hard that it's knocking a bow in the line. It's been a lot of fun fishing that thing. But chatterbaits are going to come on, and obviously if you just want to come out and catch a lot of fish, throw a wacky rig or a drop shot. With that, I want to thank you guys for watching. I've got some waves coming in here, so I'm going to cut this right now. Thank you for watching. Come out, have some fun, catch a few fish out here. I'll see you guys on the water, and good luck until next week. Suck, I'll make it. Bye-bye.